Imagine a date that is worth moving mountains for girls and a guy for whom your heart is ready to beat twice as fast. And it was you who had the chance to drive him crazy, but you missed your effing chance. Hi everyone, I'm Helga, and I'll tell you how long it took to get my dream date, only to ruin it later. My crush appeared at school, handsome Jay, tall, rich, smart, and divinely handsome. He arranged a kind of charity raffle. The point was to raise money to repair the shelter for homeless animals. The prize for the winner was a romantic evening with Jay and Monique. Well, they're like the two most popular people at school. To participate, all you had to do was pay a $300 deposit, write your name on the piece of paper, and wait to be drawn. It was a lot of money, but the shelter needed a major overhaul. I borrowed some money from a friend, and Jay pulled out my name. I couldn't believe it. I just had to go on that date. The whole school envied me. While I was trying to empty my little sister Emmy's piggy bank, she stood behind me. Her coughing caused me to drop the china pig on the floor, and I was terribly ashamed. She was a smart child beyond her years. She immediately advised how easy it is to make big money. There were several paid social experiments in our city, and I decided to participate in each one of them in order to earn not only my contribution, but also a Gucci dress. It would fit me perfectly. I had all of 2 days. First, I went to a new establishment where we were blindfolded and allowed to taste an incomprehensible, semi-cold, mushy liquid. I didn't understand what the point was, stuffing the 10th portion into myself. We were spoon-fed and remained silent. There were different tastes: potatoes with lemon, zucchini with onions, pumpkin with milk, and something else. I was almost nauseous and opened my mouth to spit out the sock-flavored puree, but I was beaten to it. Some guy shouted, "Damn, shit is more pleasant than your mashed potatoes," got up and left. Hooray! I was paid $200 and almost green. I came out of there and ran right away to the next experiment, where I had to starve. It won't bother me, I thought, but it did. For the next 10 hours, I lay on my side in a half-empty room with bare walls. A nurse walked around me, took urine for analysis, measured my blood pressure. In addition, a tube was inserted into my stomach through my throat, preventing me from breathing normally. After 2 hours, I asked to be allowed to watch at least TV, and they turned on the boring news because I wasn't even supposed to see food. The essence of the experiment wasn't really that clear to me. After a long couple of hours, they pulled out the tube. I already thought that everything was finally free, but I was allowed to go to the toilet and asked to come back. It was almost impossible to sleep, although I terribly wanted to. I was majorly tired. I just counted up to 1 trillion and then reversed it many times. I wanted to give up, but I was lucky that my neighbor in the other room protested and pulled a pipe out of her mouth. I was handed $900 and I walked out. Above all, at that moment, I wanted to go home and go to bed, but another experiment awaited me, in which I had to take $1,200 and buy myself a dress and repay the debt. I entered a dimly lit room, sat down in an armchair, and board games were placed in front of me. Sudoku, crossword, chess, backgammon, and cards. I had to play and solve at least 2 tasks several times and not fall asleep. The fewer mistakes, the closer the victory. That experiment lasted 20 hours. That is, at the end I had to buy a dress, get ready, and immediately go to the restaurant. The first 2 hours were even fun despite being tired, and then I solved the Sudoku and crossword puzzles not so fast. After 6 hours, the games were changed for us, and I took the tablet to pop bubbles of the same color. It seemed to me that something colored would distract and wake me up, but I was wrong. We were closely watched, and I just imagined my date with Jay. What would I have at dinner? What would I tell him? Would I confess my feelings? What would we talk about? What if he kissed me? Wow! We have a winner! I sharply heard someone's voice in front of me. Did I do it? I won? I hadn't slept in almost 2 days. Yes, yes! From the sharp adrenaline rush, I took my money and ran to the store for the dress. But there, a surprise awaited me. It was worn by another girl. I looked at myself in the mirror, disheveled with bright red eyes, barely able to stand on my feet. Like a robot, I resolutely followed her to the fitting room and took off my dress from her by force. Then I threw the money at the checkout and changed. "You can't even imagine what I went through for this!" I shouted at the end, got into a taxi, and arrived at the restaurant. Where is Jay? I asked myself, sitting down at the table, and then he came in, like from the cover of a fashion magazine. Jay sat down at the table, looked at me, and I almost said, "I love you." And he said, "Good morning, Helga. You didn't pass the experiment. I'm really sorry." What? Jay, what are you talking about? What kind of... Helga, open your eyes. Time is up. What time is up? We just arrived. Jay's voice got louder, and then it sounded like a woman's. Helga! He shouted in this auntie's voice, and I opened my eyes. What? What was happening? I was lying in a room hugging the tablet. It was daylight outside the window, and other participants were nearby. Yes, I dreamed it. Nobody won that experiment. My tears of disappointment are hard to describe. No! I screamed, realizing that not only was I left without a dress, I'd also slept through my dream date. However, when I arrived at school, another surprise awaited me. Rumors about charity reached the principal, and he began to find out for which shelter they were raising funds. It turned out there was no such shelter. Jay and Monique got caught in a petty scam. So basically, my date wouldn't have happened anyway. All good wishes to you guys, and remember, never make money at your own detriment. Hello everyone, my name is Sue Yuna. I'm a schoolgirl who, in addition to studying, also earns a living. As usual, after school, I went to the warehouse, carried a few boxes of apples in a basket, and stood selling them by the road. I've been doing this for 4 years, sometimes also working as a cleaner in the cafe. On one of those days, my new rich classmate Chloe Mean walked by. He recognized me, but he didn't say hello, and passing by with his miserable company, he touched one of the boxes and the apples rolled across the road. I shouted at him that he was a moron and quickly began to collect everything in a heap. Instead of apologizing, he crushed one of the apples with his foot and walked away. His friends thought it was funny, but not me. I threw the biggest apple at Mean's back. From the blow, he almost fell over, came up with screams, accusations, and began to yell that if I didn't have enough money, he'd sue and demand compensation. Yes, I'm poor and I don't have money like you, but unlike you, at least I have humanity. You're an animal. Not everything is about money. He wanted to say something in response, but his friends took him away, shouting that it was better not to mess with the poor, as we're too aggressive. At school, we just ignored each other. On one of the rainy days, I received a large order with a home delivery. In my yellow coat, I carried apples in a basket like in the market and brought them to the specified address. But when I entered the house, I saw that Mean was sitting there with company. What are you doing here? I actually live here. What about you? Among his friends, I recognized this one guy, Taejun. He grew up in an orphanage with me. He was adopted at the age of 5. He was lucky to continue to live with a wealthy family. He looked at me and shouted, "Hey, brother, leave her. Give me some change and let her go." I didn't tolerate it. I didn't want to tolerate it. Taejun, I see you haven't changed. That's what money does to people, right? When we were at the orphanage together, you sang me songs to get me to give you a glass of milk. And now this is how you're paying me? Shut up, you're confusing me with someone else. You can't be confused with anyone. You have a weird left eye just like before. Everyone started laughing at him. Mean wanted to kick me out of the house, but he was stopped by a beautiful woman, his mother. It was she who had ordered the apples, thanked me, and offered me tea. I politely refused, took my money, and went outside. Taejun ran after me, grabbed my elbow, but I kicked him so hard that he fell into the mud. Mean stopped him when he swung, and I left. The next day I went to the hospital to visit my little sister. She was receiving serious treatment due to kidney problems. All the money I earned went there. There were still $10 million missing, about $10,000. But then something unexpected happened. The doctor said that everything was paid for by an unknown sponsor. My happiness knew no bounds. After that, I went to the store again, and when I laid out the goods, Mean approached me. He put on an apron and stood next to me. "What do you need?" "I came to help with sales. I assure you, in an hour, there will be nothing left." And he was right. All the girls yelled how handsome he was and bought up all the apples. I didn't ask questions until we went out to eat after work. Then he said he did it because he felt guilty about Taejun, and he was also surprised at how his mother met me. I was so pleased. So we began to chat and we became close. One day he told me, "You're right, not everything is about money. I like you, and that's free." Then he kissed me on the cheek. That evening, Taejun distributed a photo of me selling apples. The whole class laughed at me, but Min reassured me, promising not to talk to him and invited me to our first date. I arrived early, as it happened, and waited at the entrance to the restaurant. But instead of Min, Taejun came. He said something sarcastic that I didn't want to listen to. I wanted to go inside, but he said, "Remember, people like us are nothing in this world without money. Do you really think that I'm your enemy? Think about it. Min is with you because of the money too." I didn't believe him. "What are you talking about? I have no money." "Well, him and his mother now do." "What are you talking about?" "His mother used to head our orphanage and is now going to become the chairman of a charitable foundation. Didn't you know? Thanks to you, their PR company gained momentum. Who paid for your sister's treatment? It was her. Every step was recorded by the operators, and then they'll invite you for an interview soon. You'll see." I cried, but I didn't want to believe it. And then Min called and said, "Please forgive me, there are unforeseen circumstances. Journalists came to us. Could you come, and then we'll go out after?" But I didn't want to listen. I just hung up the phone and went home. Are we really nothing in this world without money? Can everything of value be exchanged for currency? Let me know what you think.